Hey y'all, what's up? My name is Cora. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be me sharing my birth story. So if y'all don't know, I recently had my baby. Well, it's actually been 2 months now. It's crazy. It's literally flown by, but I'm literally 2 months postpartum. I figured it is finally time for me to share my birth story with you guys. I've been really wanting to share this for a long time. I actually tried to record this like a week or so ago. It was all over the place. I couldn't get my thoughts together, trying to remember some events that I didn't fully remember, but I am ready. I feel like I'm in a good headspace to be able to share this with you guys, and I just want to tell you all about my experience. I did have a very positive birth experience, so I did want to put it out on the internet and share with you guys just so you guys can just hear about my story and everything that happened within my story to make my experience such a good one. I will say there was a lot of prep that went into it. I had a lot of support during my birth, and the team that was part of my birth was a very big part of me having a good experience. So everything working together made me have a good experience. So this isn't the story that happens for everybody. This is my story. However, your birth went, it's beautiful that you brought life into this world, and I don't ever want anyone to think that it's not beautiful, because however you brought your baby into this world is beautiful, no matter what anyone else might say. So let's go ahead and start. I'm only gonna share actual birth and labor and the day of, pretty much. I can share leading up to it, what I did to prep, and then postpartum and all that stuff in another video, because I feel like this one's gonna be too long. And also I'm still on a time crunch. My baby feeds on a pretty tight schedule because she's breastfed, so we kind of do feed her on demand, but I'm gonna go ahead and share it with you guys. So basically, my daughter was born on October 14th. My due date was October 17th, and I was actually on leave. So if you guys don't know, I'm active duty military, and I decided to take personal leave. So you get a pretty long time for maternity leave in the military. I would say it's very long. You get 3 months, and then you also get con leave depending on how your labor went. They give you a certain amount of con leave, which is to recover from a surgery or a hospitalization. So I also got that on top of my maternity leave. So it's a pretty long time, but I decided I wanted to take my own personal days that were going to be charged. I wanted to take those before my due date, because I'm just not the person where I wanted to be at work when my water broke, when contractions started. I really wanted to be at home because my plan was to labor at home for as long as possible, in hopes that I could go into labor and have a natural labor, have my body naturally do it, as well as be able to do it unmedicated. So that was my plan all along. Throughout my whole pregnancy, that was my plan. I talked with multiple people about that being my plan. I also signed up for a clinic where my husband and I went to, and we started doing classes about labor, breastfeeding, pregnancy, postpartum, especially labor, pain management, stuff like that. And I was on a wait list to get matched with a doula, which I did get matched with a doula, and I can go over that entire process in another video. If you guys want that, comment down below and I'll talk about that separately. But I did get matched with a doula, so I did meet with my doula a couple times before. We went over what I wanted in my birth plan, what me and my husband wanted for the baby after birth, my plans on breastfeeding, and my plans pretty much on pain management. Did I want to have medication or did I want to go unmedicated? That was a big thing that we talked about. And then after we discussed that was my plan, we discovered different routes of things that we could do to help me manage my pain. So anyways, like I said, I took leave because I wanted to be in the own comfort of my home. And whenever it happened, I would be in a calm environment versus stressed out at work, stressing about getting home, or stressing about getting my stuff, and just a lot of factors I didn't want to have to worry about. So I took leave from my husband's birthday around that time, the second. I might have went on leave on my husband's birthday, so on the 3rd of October, and I took it literally until the 14th. And I went into labor on the 14th, so I'm oh, my daughter was looking out for me because I would have had to work the next day. So she literally came in clutch and came exactly when I needed her to come. I'm just kidding. I could have went to work and it would have been fine, but it just worked out perfectly. And actually, my family was in town, so my two sisters and my mom were in town because my sister was on fall break and they came to visit me. And obviously they had hoped that I would go into labor, but you can't control that. So they didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen because we had went and did all this stuff throughout San Antonio and there was really no like labor. I would have random Braxton Hicks contractions. Like one time in the Target parking lot I had one and I was like, oh, this might be the night, and nothing happened. So the night before I went into labor, it was like my family's last real night to be here because the next day was just going to be like a chill day, and then they were going to prep their stuff to leave the following morning because it is a long drive back to Georgia. So basically we went to the Riverwalk and we did the whole Riverwalk, and they were having some kind of art festival. We sat and we got like a character picture done. We just went around. We went to a Chinese buffet. We sat and ate Chinese. Had a whole night and I felt fine. I felt good. I felt normal. Obviously towards the end of your pregnancy you feel a lot more tired, and that's how I felt, but we came home and I just felt normally pregnant. Went to sleep and I was like, dang, I thought maybe I'd go into labor when my family's here, but I guess that's not gonna happen. So I went to sleep and I woke up literally at 4:30 in the morning, and I just thought it was my normal waking up because I was having my hip pain or because I couldn't sleep or I needed to pee. So I got up to go pee and I went to lay back down and I literally could not get comfortable. I tried to do everything I could think of to make myself more comfortable in the bed and it was not happening. So I was like, that's weird. Got up to go use the bathroom again. I was like, maybe I really have to pee again, and it's like in my back. You know, sometimes when you have to pee so bad or something, you've been holding your pee too long and it's in your back. So I was like, maybe that's the case, because I was really feeling achy pain in my back. And so tried to go to the bathroom again. I couldn't. I probably wrestled within myself trying to get comfortable for like at least 30 minutes before I was like, okay, this is weird. And I kind of like nudged my husband. I was like, hey, like I'm really uncomfortable. I don't know what's going on. I was like, what if this is the day? But I was like, no, it's just the way I was feeling is weird. I didn't know that's how the beginning of labor was gonna feel. I felt very achy. My stomach was hurting. I was like in the fetal position. It just really felt like I had the stomach bug or the flu or food poisoning. That's exactly just how my body felt. And the fact that I just couldn't get comfortable, it felt like every other time that I was just like really bad sick. I would have like pain in my stomach that kind of felt like crampy, but it didn't feel like what I thought contractions would feel like. So that's why I couldn't gauge, you know, that they were contractions. So it was just very weird. So I would like every once in a while wake my husband up and like, I can't get comfortable. I can't go to sleep. I'm still awake. So after it went on for probably like an hour or so, I decided to text my doula because I was like, this is going on too long. Like, this is weird. This has to be something. So even if it wasn't real labor, I was like, maybe it's false labor. Let me contact her and see if she can help me out. So I started texting her probably like 5:30. Yeah, maybe even like 6 o'clock. And I told her the whole story about what time I woke up, all my symptoms. And she was like, yeah, it could be labor. It could be false labor. She gave me a bunch of tips of stuff to try to do to get comfortable. And she even recommended like take a really long hot shower. Maybe that'll help you get like relaxed and stuff. And so I got in the shower at like 7 or 7:30 and I took a very long, very hot shower, probably like a 30-minute shower. And I just kind of sat there and I felt so just calm and peaceful while I was in the shower. But I was like swaying back and forth to help with what felt to me like stomach cramps. And I got out of the shower, and then at that point I woke my husband up and I was like, I think that this is it. Like, I think this is labor. I think you should pack your hospital bag, because up until this point, my husband did not have his hospital bag packed. I was very packed and ready to go. Basically, I told him to pack his bags and get ready and stuff, but I wasn't really like rushing around or really telling anybody. And also, like I said, my mom and sisters were here, and I really wasn't trying to tell anybody what was going on because I didn't want to get anyone's hopes up in the event that I didn't go into labor. So I'm texting with the doula back and forth, and then she starts to tell me to download a contraction tracker app, because I was just tracking what I thought were contractions like in the notes app on my phone, and started to do the contraction tracker app, and I would send her screenshots of what it looked like, and they were still kind of inconsistent. This is probably at like 8:30 in the morning. Obviously from 4:30 to now, it had been going on, this uncomfortable feeling and these contractions. And so, you know, my doula starts to think that it's active labor, or at least not active labor, but like my body's actually going into labor. So she asked me, did I want her to come to my house and bring some stuff so we could labor at home? And I was like, you know what? I think that that's a good idea at this point. I'm starting to get a little bit more uncomfortable. The fact that I can't get comfortable and go to sleep, I think this is like the real thing. So I would like for you to come to my house. So at that point, when the doula was coming to the house, I decided to tell like my mom. I was like, hey, this is what's been going on. I think that I'm actually going into labor today. You know, just get y'all self like mentally ready, and just to let y'all know, and to tell them that the doula was coming. And then also that's the point where I told my husband like, okay, now it's time for wake up and like get ready. So she got to our house at probably like 9:30, and at that point I hadn't really eaten breakfast. I ate like a snack, I think, but I really hadn't eaten anything. I drank like a little bit of water. And so when she got to the house, she started to help me. We did this thing called spinning babies, which is a thing that they teach you if your baby is like breached, to help you get the baby into position. But they also really preach about it to help your body naturally move the baby down, because the baby has to move down quite a bit to get into the position to actually come out of the birth canal. So we did a lot of those maneuvers. They're almost like yoga poses and yoga movements that you do with like a partner, and they really help, because once we started doing those, the contractions started picking up. They started to get a lot more consistent. They started to get a lot stronger. Up until this point, I was pretty much able to kind of talk through my contractions, but probably like 30 minutes into her being at my house, they started to become a little bit more strong, and I couldn't really talk in between them. I was getting very irritable. She also had brought a TENS unit, which if y'all don't know, it's just like a thing that you stick on your body, and it sends like little electrical shocks to a part of your body to kind of help your body manage pain. And she had put one of those on my back, so it was like 10 little stickers, and it was a thing that I could put around my neck. So we did that, and I literally had that TENS unit on until my daughter was born. So that was my saving grace. Around like 10 or so, my doula was like, you need to eat something. So I ate one of those like Kodiak protein muffins. I had some Laughing Cow cheese and some crackers and some water, which is funny because my whole pregnancy I was like, I really want to eat throughout labor, but that did not happen. So that's literally all I had, and then didn't eat anything else until I had my baby. And then I called the hospital and I told them my symptoms, how long they'd be going on for. And they said, yeah, it definitely sounds like you're in labor. And she wanted me to ask if they were busy, because sometimes that can affect just how things go when you get to the hospital. So I did ask them. They did tell me they were pretty busy. So we made sure to keep that in mind as far as going to the hospital. They kind of just told me labor at home until you feel comfortable to come in. Obviously, they gave me a couple symptoms that if these happen, you need to come in very quickly. And so I got off the phone with them, and so we decided, you know, as long as I was good laboring at home, then we were going to labor at home for as long as possible. At this point, it's probably like 10:30 in the morning, 10:30 to 11. And so at this point, we decided to go into the bathroom, and I was going to labor on the toilet. So if y'all don't know, a lot of doula places will tell you to labor on the toilet, because that helps your body naturally just like relax, helps the baby move into the correct position, help you get a little bit more dilated, helps your body relax, so that all those things can happen. So I was like, I'll give it a try. So we go into our bathroom, and it's me sitting there, and then my husband and my doula are right in front of me, and my doula was going to help me hand express some colostrum. So as I'm sitting there on the toilet, she's like telling me about the process of hand expressing colostrum. And we were going to do that to help get a little bit more of labor going, and also so I would have it when we were in the hospital. When I tell y'all, birth is such a humbling experience. It truly is. Like, and all bets are off. You just don't care about anything anymore. Everyone sees everything, and yeah, that's just how it is. But so I'm literally sitting there, and I don't know how long I was sitting there, but it really wasn't that long of a time before I felt a big gush of something. So I'm assuming that might have been my water breaking, but I couldn't really tell that if it was my water or not, because all I saw was blood. When I went to wipe, I saw a bunch of, well, what I thought was a bunch of blood. It might not have been that much blood, but to me it looked like it was a lot, and I started to freak out. I definitely started crying because I was so worried that something was wrong with my baby. I was just scared and worried, and I started crying, and my husband's like consoling me. He's like, it's okay, like calm down, like it's gonna be all right. And my doula was also trying to console me, but she was like, let's go, it's time to go to the hospital. So I had some postpartum diapers, and I just ended up putting one of those on because I didn't know how much I was going to bleed, or if it was my water breaking, if it was going to leak. So I was like, let's just be safe, and I put one of those on, and I put my shorts on, and I got my slides, and all of our stuff was in the car, and my husband gets into the car, and we start going, and he zooms me to the hospital. We literally don't live that far from the hospital. We live like 10 to 15 minutes, but he was flying. Like, I think we made it there in like 8 minutes because we were both kind of just worried. So get to the hospital, and it was a federal holiday, so the 14th was a federal holiday, so there was literally no traffic at the gate, which was beautiful. Also, there was not many people like in the lobby of the hospital or in the elevators. Like, it was kind of a dead zone at the hospital, which kind of worked out because I was able to have my contractions and get myself up to labor and delivery. My husband asked me if I wanted a wheelchair, but I was like, no, I got it, I'll walk up there. And I tried my best to do that. I got into the elevator and made it all the way up to labor and delivery, which was on the 5th floor, and I literally had a contraction right before the doors. And then a nurse that works there was like, oh my god, it's okay, like I'll get you a wheelchair. So she runs and gets me a wheelchair, comes back, puts me in the wheelchair, takes me to the waiting room, and you have to like check in. It's, if y'all have ever been to a labor and delivery floor, it's like locked down there. You cannot just like walk in. You have to go check in, and they do all of your like registration and stuff up there, and then they take you back to a room. It's like locked. You cannot get in it. So I'm up there, and I felt like I was at the check-in for forever. It felt so long because at this point I'm starting to have like actual painful contractions, and I was trying to go to like my happy place. I feel like that was my biggest thing that helped me throughout my birth. Was anytime I was having like a lot of pain or I was very uncomfortable, I would just kind of close my eyes and go to what I felt like was my happy place, my calm place, and just like think through it, like, God, just like, get me through this birth, like just get me through it, allow me to do it, allow me to bring my baby, allow my baby to be okay. Sitting there waiting, and I had went to the bathroom a couple times, and I kept seeing the blood, and so I was getting a little bit more worried. I was like, oh my god, please God, let my baby be all right. I don't know if this blood is normal or what. And then my doula was on her way, and then whenever I was about to get pulled back, my doula had literally just got to the hospital. And what made me a little sad is they made me go to triage by myself. So my doula and my husband couldn't come in with me in triage, which I was only in triage for like 10 to 15 minutes, but to me it felt like forever. And so I'm in triage, and they wanted me to lay in the bed so that they could get my vitals and do the baby monitor. But at this point in time, I could not sit still. That's how painful I guess it was, and how uncomfortable I was. I couldn't sit still. The only thing that was making me feel better was to like lean over the bed and sway, and then go sit on the toilet. At that point, that's all I wanted to do, was sit on the toilet. That position was the most comfortable. And so I think that she got my like blood pressure and stuff like that. She got my main vitals, and she had got the baby monitor on for like a second, and then I wanted to go sit on the toilet. And then I came back in so that they could get me in a gown. I got in my gown. They let my husband come back. And then I was talking to the doctor. She was going over all the legal stuff of like, this is, you know, what could happen during labor, doing like my labor consent, which I didn't even sign that consent until after I'd given birth because I had went so quickly. And I don't think that they thought I was as dilated as I was, because I was obviously in pain, but I was still able to like talk to people. I wasn't like screaming, and I wasn't hysterical. So they finally decided to do a cervical exam, and I was 5 centimeters dilated. So I had got to the hospital at 5 centimeters dilated, and they're like, okay, yeah, you're in active labor. We're gonna keep you here and admit you and get you ready to have your baby. Then I get into my actual room. I met my labor nurse. She was like so sweet and so positive. And when I told her that I wanted to try to have my baby without an epidural, she was like, okay, we got this, like I can help you, like we're gonna do this. And she actually stayed with me my entire labor, which I know is unusual. I know that depending on the staffing, that's not always the case. They have to usually check on their patients sometimes that are in other rooms, but she was able to stay with me my entire labor, which it really wasn't that long. By the time I made it into my actual room, I was only in there for like 2.5 hours. I constantly was having to go to the toilet. I tell y'all, I could not sit on the bed, and I still had the Tenzion on my back. I was using that, but I literally couldn't sit on the bed. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I know y'all want me to be hooked up to the monitor, but I can't. I'm so uncomfortable. And she was like, that's fine. So I'm literally in the bathroom at one point, and it's like me, the nurse, and my doula and my husband, and we're all just sitting there in the bathroom. I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I can't do this, like maybe I do want the epidural. So they decided to get anesthesia to come talk to me about the epidural. Before anesthesia could make it in to talk to me, like I said, I was laboring on the toilet, and she was like, maybe I should check you because you keep saying like you can't do this and all that stuff. And I was like, okay. And she asked me, do you want to check? And I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and do a cervical exam. And so she's checking me on the toilet, and I was 9 centimeters dilated, which was insane. She called in the whole birthing team to come in and get the room ready. She wanted me to finally move to the bed because she's like, we can't have this baby on the toilet. And I was like, okay. And so I go get on the bed. Anesthesia comes to consent me, but when I tell y'all I could not even sit still, the guy's trying to talk to me about all of the risk of anesthesia, and I'm just so aggravated because I was literally on my hands and knees trying to get comfortable, and I just couldn't. I was not even listening to him, to be honest with you. Trying to get comfortable, and I felt like I was doing like this motion. Like I just felt like that. Like I felt just so strange. I don't even think I could have sat still for the epidural because I couldn't even sit. I either had to be in like the fetal position, hands and knees, or on the toilet. I couldn't even sit still. I started to feel like something was coming out of my body, and so I told them, I was like, I think I have to push, like I think I need to poop, like something's going on, like something needs to come out. I just have to do something. I have to push. Get the doctor to check me, and when they checked me, I was 10 centimeters dilated, and they're like, all right, it's time to push. And I was like, okay. They're like, well, do you want your mom to come in here? Because I guess at this point my mom and sisters were there. I was like, yeah, I want my mom to come in. I didn't say yeah because at this point I wasn't really saying a whole lot. I'm pretty sure I just held up my thumbs up. I started on hands and knees, which I thought would be the easiest for me, but it was not. Like I didn't really make any progress at all on hands and knees. Ended up going to a side laying position on one of my sides. Wasn't making a whole lot of progress in that position, so they put me on the other side. I pushed for an entire hour. And towards the end of my pushing, I think the team was starting to get just a little bit worried. Daughter's heart rate was dropping just a little bit, and she wasn't fully like coming out. I don't know. Pushing is really hard, especially when you can feel it. It's really hard. So, we ended up starting to make progress with the pushing and all that stuff. But towards the end, whenever her head was starting to come out, it was so painful. It was like a burning sensation, and I tried to close my legs because like I told you, I was in a side laying position and I didn't have an epidural, so I could move my whole body. And yeah, so I was literally trying to close my legs because it was burning and hurting so bad, and everyone, my mom, my husband, my doula, my nurse, everyone's like holding my legs open. They're like, no. And I was like, when is it going to be done? Like at this point I just kept saying like, when is it going to be done? I want it to be done. I want to be done with this. I want it to be over because I was just so uncomfortable. Mostly just moaning and groaning. I wasn't really like yelling and screaming and hysterical. I had my eyes closed most of the time that I was pushing, and I was really trying to like go to a place where I felt good and happy. And it was so sweet because I had made a birth playlist and I totally forgot about it, but my husband had literally put it on for me. It was just sweet afterwards realizing that he played my birth playlist for me and was saying like motivational things to me. And obviously I'm like the typical, I'm like in labor and I'm in pain and I'm like annoyed, but afterwards I'm like, that's so sweet that he was just trying to like motivate me. And he's like, you got it, just think about this situation, and like really trying to motivate me. And my mom was in there and she was trying to motivate me, saying like, it was sweet, like just saying she's almost out, and you know, my husband telling me like she's almost out, she's beautiful, she has hair, like all this stuff. And once I got to that point, you know, I was like, okay, because you know, pushing for what feels like forever and not having a lot of progress, it's a little discouraging. So I was like, hearing them tell me all that stuff made me feel really good and made me want to push even harder. And so I was so ready to meet my baby. And so the doctors were like, I could hear them talking and I can hear them say, you know, if the baby doesn't come out after like the next couple pushes, you know, we're gonna have to go a different route. And so I didn't want to do that. And so I was like, no, I have to just push. I don't care how painful it is. Like, I have to just push really hard. And so, you know, a couple more really hard pushes and my daughter came out, and she did have a very bad cone head because I was pushing for so long. But she was so beautiful and so amazing. And obviously she came out and they put her on my chest, which was an amazing experience. And I cried for a little bit, but I was just more happy. And so I held her there for, you know, as long as they would let me. And my husband was there and we just had that time. And then literally my daughter pooped on me as soon, like, she was probably only on my stomach for like 15 minutes and then pooped. So they had to like clean us up. But then they took her to the other side of the room. They did like her weight and her height and did her checks. And then, you know, they let my husband do skin to skin at this point because I was having to be stitched up, which I will tell you is probably one of the worst parts about not having an epidural, is afterwards when they are going to stitch you up, you can feel everything that they're doing. And so while they were in there, they were trying to see, because I was having so much bleeding. I had low platelets throughout my pregnancy. And I actually had taken my aspirin a couple days before I went into labor because I didn't know to stop it. They were really trying to check in there and make sure they got out all the clots and all that stuff. And I did have an internal tear, and so they had to stitch me up. I could feel every bit of that, and that was so painful, excruciatingly painful, which I couldn't sit still for it. And they were like, you have to sit still for this part. So I did end up getting fentanyl, which they gave that to me so that I could sit still for them to stitch me up, which thank God they did that because I wouldn't have been able to sit still. I will never forget how amazing everyone made me feel. Like, my husband was obviously so supportive and so loving and kind. My mom getting to be there was so beautiful and something I wouldn't trade for the world. Because honestly, our plan was it just to be us, and then obviously the doula once we got one. But having my mom in there was awesome. Like, I wouldn't trade that for the world. And my team was so supportive and kind of let me do everything the way I wanted to do it, and it went so fast. I couldn't have a better experience about the time because I wasn't even in labor for 12 hours. Like, I started having labor and contractions at 4:30 in the morning, and by 2:40, which I don't even think I said that, but by 2:40 my daughter was born. That's crazy as a first-time mom. And then, you know, when everyone was in there doing the checks for the baby and for myself and everything, they kept asking me like, this is your first child and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, that's crazy, like, that's amazing that you're able to do it even that fast and also without an epidural, and that your body was able to labor that quickly. And I don't know, it was just amazing. When I look back at my birth story, I'm like, wow, like, I'm so glad that it went the way that it did, and I'm so thankful and I'm so blessed. And yeah, but I can also do a video about postpartum and everything. I can do a video about postpartum in the hospital and then also postpartum at home, because those are two very different experiences in their own ways. I'll share that in a different video, but like I said, I had a beautiful experience. I would probably do it again without an epidural, even though it was painful and uncomfortable, and there were times where I was like, I can't do this, but I loved the fact that I was able to get up and move around, and that my body was able to do it so fast because I was able to be up and move around, and that I was able to push in the way that I wanted to. Yeah, I don't know. I would probably do it again, but don't let anyone tell you that it's not painful, because it definitely is. You just have to be able to manage your pain and really work on pain management and just have that stuff mapped out before you go into labor. So yeah, that is my birth story. More videos to come about other things about postpartum and childbirth and stuff like that. But thank you guys for watching this video and listening to my experience. So if you are about to have your baby, I wish you the best, and I pray that you have a healthy labor and delivery, and just wish you all the beautiful things. And if you're just watching this to watch it, thank you guys for listening to me tell my story. Have a nice day. Bye.